Hey everybody, today we're going to talk about some common swing faults. Pretty much, I guess it all kind of comes in one swing that I know I see it on the lesson tee, but we're here with Master PGA Professional TJ Sullivan, and he's going to help us out here talking about some common swing faults that you might see in your own game. Hey everybody, Scott Hogan coming at you. We are here today, excited to be here at Golf Tech in Oak Brook. We are joined by TJ Sullivan, PGA Master Professional, Golf Digest Best in State, Golf Digest Best Young Instructors. He is also the regional manager for Golf Tech on the south side here in the city. He's got a bunch of centers that he works with. He's also the director of instruction here at Golf Tech Oak Brook. He's given a lot of lessons, so he is somebody that I think can give us a lot of help for your game on one of these really common problems. TJ, thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah.
I think one of the most common things that people come to see me about is any shot that might curve a little bit too far to the right.
Yeah.
Whether it starts left and kind of peels in towards the fairway, starts right and goes farther offline into some trees, or just general kind of lack of distance too. So those two combinations or three combinations are really what we're here and trying to help people get better at.
Yeah, and so what we're kind of talking about there, and again, I see this a lot. I know you see it a lot more than I do, I know, because you teach more than me, but it's probably something that when we're talking about this, we're talking about kind of that classic, hey, we're coming up, that club's gonna go out, it's gonna cut across it. For the right-handed player, we're swinging left.
Yep.
And that face has to stay open. If you're gonna get it anywhere close to the target, it's gotta stay open-ish, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And so that's gonna be a huge distance loss, because generally what you're doing is you're also adding a whole bunch of loft in there. So trying to keep the club face open. So the exercise I would have someone do, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
Really, it's actually quite simple. First, I'd probably take someone's grip and probably get their left hand a little bit more over the top, or their lead hand a little bit more over the top of the club. And have them set up with their right foot just step backwards a little bit, and really almost kind of feel as though the left elbow is above the right elbow, and then just start working on some smaller swings where really accentuating how much you can rotate here, and then as you come through, actually not necessarily turning a whole bunch, so you can kind of direct the club path a lot more to the right from there, and it should look something like this.
Yeah, that's going on.
And that ball will almost always start a little bit to the right and then draw from there. So I know it's not really a lot, but it would feel very awkward for someone holding the club a little bit differently like this, and then just kind of trying to change that swing direction with a slightly smaller or less than full swing, just to try to get them to see that ball actually go the opposite direction.
So really interesting there that I thought, what I saw you just do there. So one, you said small swings.
Yeah,
okay?
Absolutely. Small, slower to start, and then gradually working up pace from there.
And that's been a common theme throughout our entire instructor series, and I know I talk about that too, but throughout the entire instructor series, we've heard people say, hey, start small in getting a feel for what's going on and trying to understand what's happening. Don't just go full bore and say, all right, I'm going to do it, and see if it works,
Yeah, I think the studies show that if you learn something new at first, it's important to go really slow, and then within reason, trying to keep up that pace, something that you're a little bit more comfortable with, especially as springtime is getting a lot closer.
Right. So when you're doing this drill here, okay, let's say somebody's doing this. What are some keys, so obviously what you just did there, swing more to the right, and you had a couple great points about setup, also how your elbow and how everything's kind of moving back as you're going through, and then the direction you're going through, right? So we get that point. What if somebody is struggling with it? Is there something like, hey, we swing to this part of the ball, or anything they can use to maybe help them achieve this, because maybe they're just not getting it? Yeah,
absolutely. So one thing that kind of brushed over a little bit quickly there, by having your right foot back, it would also make it a little bit easier if someone flared their toes outward a little bit more, give them a little bit more mobility as far as how much you can turn your hips in the backswing. That would also allow you to swing, again, trying to change that swing direction. Something very simple that you can probably find at home is either a head cover or a foam noodle, a pool noodle on the ground. Angle it a little bit out to the right, such as that. And then just kind of do that same setup where your grip is a little bit left hand, a little bit more over the top. Again, kind of setting up this way, and then just trying to trace that noodle on the follow through, just trying to make sure that you're avoiding that, trying to get that club path to go out that way.
Yeah, and one thing as I'm observing you do this, one, you have feedback.
Yep.
You have feedback on the ground there in the noodle. So people are going to start to see like, hey, if I hit that noodle, I'm not doing it right.
Right.
Correct? And then the other thing is, and I think where maybe some people have some bad misconceptions is, a lot of people think like straight ahead. Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And when I'm watching you, and we're just making swings to this tee. We don't even need a ball for this.
Nope.
But you're making swings and you're coming in, almost, probably not exactly a 45-degree angle, but I mean, you're coming pretty.
Certainly feels like that.
Yeah, you're really coming in on that angle as you're approaching the ball. And I think that's something that, that ball is always going to be there. It's going to be the same. Maybe that's something they can also start looking at, and just, anything you can do to help yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Right.
Or even having another club on the ground, laying that down as far as what direction straight actually is.
Right.
And then grabbing another golf club over here, just to know what the perception is, so that way you know for sure whether or not you're actually going off to the right. Probably put that a little bit farther in front so I don't hit it. So just to kind of feel as though, yes, I do want that feel to be going that much more to the right. And then, just making sure that left hand, just otherwise, because if you had that same, the grip that most people do come with would be, kind of like a right-facing grip or an open-face grip, weak grip, whatever you really want to call it. That's the grip that you kind of have to have if you're swinging that far left, as you mentioned earlier. Mm-hmm. So as long as you have that grip all the way over there on top of that club, then you can pretty much freely swing to the right. And trust that the ball is going to come back to the left.
And the last thing, can you set up again one more time for me? I think important for people. I'm going to grab this noodle here. I love that you have noodles everywhere. So go ahead and make that swing that you were just doing. One thing I like that you do is, and people don't do is, they don't move their hips. They're afraid to move, right? Yep. They think, oh, I got to stay still and locked up and perfect or whatever the thought is. And it's like, no, got to get some movement in there and get yourself some room and get yourself set up to be able to do what you're trying to do.
Yeah, absolutely. It's much easier, and again, it's much easier to attack that golf ball slightly from the inside if your hands are deeper or kind of a little bit more round. It's easier to get my hands a little bit more around with my elbows fairly close if I turn my shoulders.
Right.
And I can only turn my shoulders so much relative to my hips.
Right.
Right? I'm not as flexible as I used to be.
Right.
So if I don't rotate my hips, then I can only turn my shoulders a certain amount. So allowing my trail leg to straighten out, allowing that right hip to work backwards, allowing my shoulders to turn, that just makes everything else a lot deeper, so that way it's easier for me to swing out to the right like that.
My last point, I noticed you're not firing your hips through impact.
Yeah, that's interesting. What we found is that while the elite players turn their hips a whole bunch,
right,
for people who tend to slice the golf ball, it's generally because they are, again, as we've talked about, swinging too far to the left, in which case then their shoulders are turning more, their hips are tending to turn a little bit more, their elbows are separating. So it's just a little bit easier if you actually don't rotate necessarily, so that way you can kind of keep that club traveling out that way and finishing a little bit higher and kind of extending in this fashion here, in opposed to trying to really turn, in which case that's going to bring that club too far to the left.
And I know we'll see tour players do that, but tour players, a lot of the tour players are fighting a left shot, or they're trying to stop it from going left.
Right, and they also are tour players, so they can do whatever
really
they want.
Good, yeah.
They're really good at a really hard game.
Yeah, right. Yeah, and their bodies do a lot more than I know mine does.
For sure, yeah.
Okay. So, awesome. So hopefully this is going to help you. I know this is something that a lot of people, you sent in numbers and stuff like that on the channel. These are a lot of the numbers I see, as far as people that hit it and it's curving, they're out of control to the right if you're a right-handed player. So if you're a lefty, to the left, you're going to have inconsistency. If you're not swinging this way, you're going to have inconsistency with where that club's hitting the ground. You're not really going to be able to control that, even on irons, right?
Of course.
Yeah, you're going to have a lot better control of where you're hitting it with your irons, even on the ground for your low point. So you're just going to have a lot more control and a lot more variables that are not kind of all over the place which, you know what, that's going to help you hit the ball a lot better, and that's going to help you shoot lower scores. So
Yeah,
that's the
absolutely.
idea, right?